I'm um I'm going to scratch the usual intro, and I'm making this video. There's I don't even know how to begin this one. There's a lot that's going on upstairs in my head, and for those of you who've never been to my channel or seen my face or know my videos, my name is Rio, and I've been making videos on this platform for 6 years. And through that time, what I've grown to learn is that sometimes certain opinions should be really just kept to yourself. And that's due to the fact that often your words or your opinions that you feel the need to express for any given circumstance, those can completely be taken out of context or misconstrued, or I guess just simply misunderstood. Sometimes some people just have a way of misinterpreting what you said, and they only see what they heard, if that makes any sense. I don't really feel the need to speak on things too often because I really just feel like there's no need to. I've often felt like in my little section, in my little bubble, what I have to say is not going to matter. But this is one of those things that I feel like I just really need to get off my chest, and I gotta speak my mind on how I feel about this particular situation. A few videos ago, I had a comment, and I don't remember exactly what the comment was. I'll actually put it on the screen. It was left by someone who was basically saying that with all the things going on in the world, I'm uploading videos about things that don't pertain to that. And I get where they were coming from, but I had no interest in talking about something that's been talked about everywhere. You know, it's already been talked about. What am I going to say about it? And it wasn't that comment that really got me wanting to say something. Heck, for even my own dad was like, "Hey son, I think you should speak on this." And I told him, I was like, "Dad, I don't feel the need to." The more I keep seeing these things, I just feel like I do have an opinion, and I want my opinion. I want to share it. I want to share it. Although I feel though my opinion may not be the most popular of opinions, but I really don't care about that. I mean, I want to express myself. It's as simple as this. If you want change, you got to speak up and ask for it. Let me just start by saying this. Racism, it's real. And I think due to recent and tragic events, a lot of us, especially some who were unaware, are becoming more aware if they weren't already. There's some people that have lived with privilege, and in a lot of cases, the majority of them never took the time to realize that privilege. And now it's more evident than it really ever was. Privilege exists. Racism exists. There's some things that I've never felt comfortable talking about because I've never wanted those things to define me. I get to this point where I realize that nothing can define me if I don't allow it to. I get questions all the time like, "Rio, how old are you? Rio, what's your age?" And it wasn't like I was ever hiding how old I was. I just never wanted my age to define me, because sometimes people will see you as a certain age and think that's just, "Oh, you're old, dude. You have nothing to provide me because I'm looking for somebody who's going to relate to me and is in my age bracket." And for me, I just wanted to appeal to a lot of people, but I don't really care about that. I care about appealing to I want the natural appeal. If you naturally appeal to me and who I am and my personality that I exude, which is real and is genuine, then I welcome you with open arms. With that being said, I am 33 years old, born in Columbus, Ohio on March 31st in 1987. I've spent the majority of my life here in Columbus, Ohio, and some of it growing up in St. Thomas, the Virgin Islands, which is where my dad is from. In my 33 years of life, I've experienced things that have molded me into the man that I am today. Just like, all of us do, right? I can't remember at which age I experienced my first encounter with racism, but the experiences themselves are things that you just never really forget. When I was 14 or 15, I don't remember exactly, I was riding my bike home one evening from a friend's house. I was riding through the parking lot of a strip mall when I was approached by a police cruiser. They stopped me, and at the moment I didn't really think too much of it, but I remember being kind of confused at what was happening. I honestly can't even tell you if both of the officers were black or white. I know for sure at least one of them were, and the other could have been, I'm not sure. And that part really doesn't even really matter. Apparently someone had robbed a nearby restaurant, I guess at gunpoint, and I guess they were given a description of the assailant who did it, and they were supposed to be in a nearby area, and I fit that description. There I was, 14 or 15, braids, do-rag, baggy clothes, riding his bicycle at late at night, and I'm black. I guess the assumption was that I was up to no good. They have me there, and they're questioning me, and they're asking me questions about my whereabouts, and they explained to me what had just happened and asked me if I knew anything about it. And I'm like, no, I don't know nothing. Asked me where I was headed and yada, yada, yada. And I only lived like 5 minutes away from where, because I was going home, so I was almost home. I was only like 5 minutes away. They're on their radios, and they're talking, and I guess getting more details about the description of the person. And at the time, I just remember vividly that my phone starts ringing in my pocket. So I went to answer it. My life could have ended right there in that moment. They both reached for their guns fast and yelled, "Hands where we can see them." So I put my hands up really, really quick because I was terrified. And I didn't realize that I was a threat. So I got my hands up, and I just, tell them that, my phone was ringing, and I just, asked if I can answer it. And for some reason, I can't not remember who was on the phone that was calling me. I just recall that I was saved out of that situation. I feel like since I was close to being home, my older brother was, I think he was driving by or walking by. I remember seeing my brother and basically waving him down like, hey, and kind of telling him that what was happening, and basically explained to them that, I didn't have nothing to do with that, and told them who I was. I'm just a teenager at my friend's house. I made it home that night. I was lucky that situation didn't take a turn for the worst. I was lucky that I wasn't shot as soon as I reached in my pocket to reach for my phone. At the time, I never really thought about how bad that situation could have been. And it wasn't till years later when I see all these horrible things and hear all of these horrible things that I realize how fortunate that in that moment, I realized how fortunate that I was to make it out of that. That's one of many, but I think that's the first one. That's the first one that really taught me something. What I learned was that I didn't get the same benefits as some others would due to the color of my skin. But you want to know something though? I've never looked at the color of my skin as being a disadvantage. I never use it as an excuse not to accomplish something. I understood that being black didn't adhere to some of the benefits that being white did, but I never let that stop me from doing the things that I wanted to do. I never let that stop me from challenging myself or just learning something new. What we have mostly is what's up here, our brain. And when we strengthen that, when we challenge that, we become more powerful than ever. And it took me some time to really, really learn that. I've worked in retail for 8.5 years. And even through that time, I experienced my fair share of racism, just like I'm sure tons of people do, unfortunately. One of the first few times I can recall something happening, I was working on a shift with two people, so it's three of us in total. Me and then two girls, which both happen to be white. A lady comes into the store and I go to help her. And the lady walks away from me and then goes to one of the girls and tries to talk to them. And the girl explained to her that, he's the one that's supposed to be helping you. He can do it. And for whatever reason, this lady just turned around and walked right out of the store. Now, was she racist? I'm not entirely sure. It seemed like it and it felt like it. Maybe she just was sexist. Maybe she was just on a hate men spree and she just wanted to talk to a female. There could be so many things, but it came across as if she didn't want to talk to me because of my skin color. When it happened, I was shocked by it, but it wasn't something that really struck me to my core. It didn't bother me severely. The two girls that I was working with, they were just completely just taken back by it. They was like, what just happened? And I was like, you know what, whatever, it is what it is. And they were both like, no, that's not okay. Because they weren't used to experiencing those kind of things. They were more bothered by it than I was. We don't share the same benefits. We just don't. It's kind of like, that time when you're younger and you go to your white friend's house to hang out. And we all have had those growing up, whether, we're in elementary school, middle school, high school, we've all had those. And we go to their house and they get in an argument with their parents and they curse their parents out. We know that if that's us, we know what's about to happen. So we're expecting to see something like that happen. And when we hear them curse them out, we're like, what did you just say? You're waiting for them to get smacked up because that's what would happen in a black household. Nothing happens. Parents don't do anything. And you're sitting there like, what? You can do that? But we know if we dare to try that at home, we wouldn't live to make it to next week. We won't live to make it till tomorrow. I know that probably wasn't the best analogy for that situation, but what I'm trying to say is that the system was not really built for us. It's completely different. And when I say us, you know what I mean. What this comes down to is we have to be smart. We have to protect ourselves. I can't make the same kind of mistakes as a white person could. And then I know that. Because if I make that mistake and then law enforcement arrives to do their job, which is to protect and serve, will they feel the need to protect me? Will they? Until we put ourselves in a position to make a difference and do something about it, we have to make it home at night. The Second Amendment states that we all have a right to bear arms. Unfortunately, that doesn't apply to me. And I know that because if I carry a weapon and am deemed as a threat for whatever reason, they will feel the need to eliminate that threat, which is what they're taught. And this is when I question this. The question is, why are we automatically seen as threats? Is it because the color of our skin? Is it? I believe that that's a huge part of it, but not all of it. Violence is why we are seen as threats. Is this violence due to oppression or poverty? It probably is. I don't have that answer, but I would lean towards it being because of oppression and poverty. Some of you may already know this, but I lost two people in my family, both younger than me, to violence. Simple, stupid violence. Violence from those that shared the same skin color as them. My niece was killed 4 years ago, and my nephew was killed back in January of this year. She was 22, 3 weeks before her 23rd birthday, and he was 18. Both lives cut short over stupidity. The other day, I went to the grocery store. I pulled into the parking spot just straight in, and next to me was an SUV that had practically just reversed into their spot. So my driver window was facing their driver window, if that makes sense. Basically, there were two people in the car that I could see. It was a guy and a girl. She was in the driver's seat and he was in the passenger seat. And to help this story make sense, they were both black. My people. She was smoking a cigarette and then he was eating Popeyes, I believe. I opened my door to get out the car, and as I'm getting out of the car, she rolls down her window and then tosses her cigarette out, practically down towards my feet. In that moment, I thought to myself, like, damn, like, did you not just see me standing right here? She literally just almost threw the cigarette at me. I wanted to just say something so she could just be aware of, you know, what she had did and what had happened, because maybe she didn't realize it. There's a possibility that she didn't realize it, but there's also a possibility that she did and maybe just didn't even care. So in the moment, I'm annoyed by it. And immediately I started just kind of thinking about how I felt about it. I analyzed the outcome and potential risks if I said something. I felt as though it could have went two different ways. I could have said something probably like, you know, hey, excuse me, I don't know if you realized, but I was getting out of the car right when you threw that cigarette out and you threw it down towards me. I just wanted to let you know it's right here. Very respectful and non-confrontational, which is usually how I am. So I wouldn't have intended to spark any kind of confrontation, right? Because it wasn't necessary in that instance. But just because I knew that was my intent doesn't mean that she would have took it that way. It doesn't mean that it would have been perceived that way. And I understand that when it comes to people and words. Like I said earlier, sometimes people have a way of receiving what you say in a way that wasn't intended. That's why I do the best I can to be very careful with what I say and how I say it. Two outcomes. If I said something, she would have either apologized because she really didn't see me, or she could have got mad that I even said anything to her at all, which would probably have meant that old boy in the passenger seat would have got rowdy. Things probably could have and would have escalated. And then who knows what would have happened at that point. I could see the ratchetness. And in that moment, I just realized that it wasn't even worth it. After quickly just analyzing the situation, I just came to the conclusion that saying something about it just wasn't worth it. Maybe she didn't see me. Maybe she did. At the end of the day, it really didn't matter. What mattered most was me going into the store and then getting back home safely. We have to be smart. We have to analyze our risks. Every day when we wake up and we get out of bed, there are risks. When we walk out our door, there are risks. It's up to us to analyze potential risks so we can make the best decisions for ourselves. We don't share the same liberties and benefits as white America. And I call it that because that's really just what it is. When I hear these stories and see the things on the news, it saddens me. It really just hurts me to the core, to the point where I can't even watch it. I don't like seeing it because I can't go about my day and feel good about it. I can't go about my day and have any productivity in my day because it sits in my heart and sits on my mind, and I can't function that way. To this day, I haven't watched the George Floyd video. I can't watch that whole thing. I've seen clips here and there from watching the news, and I can't watch that man being murdered in cold blood like that. I just can't. Just because I'm not watching it doesn't mean that I don't see it. Doesn't mean that I don't know what happens. It comes back to this question of the violence, and we're seen as threats because of the violence. Oppression and poverty, in my opinion, is where this violence comes from. The young black man is seen as violent. It's a simple mindset that says, I don't have anything of my own, so I'm gonna go take someone else's so I can have something. We need the youth the black youth of tomorrow to be in better situations. That's why I really applaud the people that are financially capable of making a difference, actually standing up and doing something. More youth camps, better public education. These are all things that the black youth need. We aren't well educated. We aren't the smartest. Most successful black people, and this is where I may get a little flack for saying this, most successful black people, if you turn on your TV, they're a rapper or professional athlete. Now, we do have the anomalies out there, the doctors and lawyers, we have those. But the majority of people that actually make something of themselves play the sport or made it as an artist, as a rapper. That doesn't happen for everybody. We come from broken homes and broken families where both parents aren't present in one household. Both parents may be in someone's life, but they aren't together. And in most cases, both parents are not in these young black children's life. And in most cases, the mom is there, dad isn't. Single income family home. Mom works, does the best she can to provide. There isn't a lot of money coming in, unfortunately. And when you're young and you're realizing that you want nice things, or you want you want more for yourself so you can, have your own life, getting a job is not what most people think. They turn to the streets. Oppression and poverty. I was fortunate. Both of my parents were present. Now, they weren't in the same household, but they both were there. If I had to make a phone call, ask for something, in most cases, if it wasn't given, the direction was provided. My dad was the disciplinarian. And I know both of my parents are watching this. Dad made sure that my brother and I grew up with manners and a belief system. Grew up in church, grew up reading the Bible. I grew up understanding what was right and what was wrong. He always said, whatever you set your mind to, you can do. And that's really how I function these days. Whatever I feel like I can do something, as long as I put my mind to it, chances are I'm going to do it. He was very strict, very, very strict. As a child, you don't really understand what your parents are trying to instill in you until you become an adult. Now, as an adult, 33-year-old man, I get it. I see a lot that's happening in the world, and I see the upbringing and the virtues and the values that were instilled in me, and I get it. Now that I'm an adult, I get it. And I actually told him that a couple years ago. I said, I understand. It was a little bit too much, but I understand. My mom was always there to make sure that my brother, siblings, we had good birthdays and good Christmases. The kind of things that children, really remember. The kind of things that make children happy. Those are, things that, children need sometimes. Working 2 jobs just so she can provide in her way. I don't want to bore you with my life story because that's not what this is about. Basically, I'm just saying that both parents were present in some capacity. I had that. There's a lot of people who don't, and that was my privilege. I realized that. I'm privileged to have that. And I always have to remind myself of that. Some people just didn't have it. But of course, being young, being an adolescent, you go through things, you go through experiences, and you have to learn from them. And I did. I learned the hard way sometimes. But all of those things molded me into being who I am and how I am. This all comes back to violence. Black on black violence. It's too much in our community. So when I hear the chants that Black Lives Matter, I feel it because I am black. However, in some cases, it's those same people screaming Black Lives Matter will be the ones that want to shoot you because you stepped on their shoes or looked at them wrong. It's sad. Yes, Black Lives Matter. Our lives matter. In that same token, all lives matter. Black, brown, yellow, white. all lives matter. I just wish that we treated each other as such, like we matter. But love wouldn't be love if hate didn't exist. This may be a little off topic, but I was happy to see people protesting for equality and the discrimination and the social injustice that we endure in this nation. I was really happy to see that. But then on the other hand, you have the riots and the looting and the same violence that doesn't get us nowhere. But people were speaking up. People are speaking up. People are still speaking up. I am speaking up. But what bothered me a little bit is that these crimes, police brutality, it's been happening for years. And it took something so tragic and so unfortunate for people to open their eyes and see it. And I just asked myself, where was this before? Why now? You know, hey, I guess you can't ask where they were, just be happy where they are now. I don't know if any of you have seen the movie The Hate You Give. It's a very powerful movie and it's hurtful to watch. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but I do want to give a brief synopsis of it because I do feel that it ties into the point that I'm really trying to make here. So in this movie, a young girl, teenage girl in high school, has a childhood friend. It's been a while since I've seen it, so I might be a little bit fuzzy on it, but I'm going to do the best I can to break it down. So childhood friend, she sees him at a party, and I guess they had grown up together, and when she sees him, you know, he's decked out with designer stuff, jewelry and money, so she knows something's up. Basically, he was dealing drugs, doing what happens in inner cities. He offers to give her a ride home from the party. On the way home, they get stopped by the police, and she's explaining to him, like, you know, hey, don't say nothing stupid, don't do nothing stupid, you know, just be careful. But being young, being a teenager, sometimes you just kind of just want to show off a little bit. You want to just, you know, act up, trying to impress a girl, do things that you probably usually wouldn't do. So the cop approaches the car, tells him to stay in the car, asks for all these things. So he gives them to the cop. The cop tells him to step out of the car, and then he went back to his cruiser to do something or whatever. Meanwhile, he's showing out, and she's basically saying, like, you know, hey, just stop, whatever you're doing, just stop. He reaches in the car for his brush, just to brush his hair and show off. And he gets shot and killed. It's very, very sad to watch, because that's reality. That happens. I was lucky that it didn't happen to me, because it happens. Another powerful scene in the movie. That girl, I think her name was Star in the movie. It's a couple years old, like I said. I don't have the details are a bit fuzzy, but the girl is talking to, I believe, her uncle, who the character is played by Common, and she's talking to him. Meanwhile, uncle is a cop. She's talking to him about this crime, this murder of her friend by a white cop. And he's explaining to her that some people don't see it as a crime. They just see it as a traffic stop that went bad. And he explains to her, as a cop and as a black cop, that he would have reacted the same exact way. Because when he's in these streets and in these hoods, he fears for his life. So if he tells someone who's black to stop, listen, don't do this, don't do that, and we do it anyway, he immediately feels like he has to protect himself. And she's telling him that it shouldn't be that way. And he told her, well, it is. That's just the way it is. If somebody reaches for something and he thinks he sees a gun, he's gonna shoot. So she asks him, if he's in a white neighborhood and the person he stops is white and they're wearing a suit and they look like they're dressed for business, they can still be doing illegal stuff. They just don't look like it. If they reach for something, is he gonna say, put your hands up, or is he gonna shoot? He said he would say, put your hands up, and he wouldn't shoot. I paraphrase that whole thing. If you wanna see that entire clip for better context, I'm gonna link it down in the description section. But it's such a powerful scene because that really details the perception of the black man due to what we exude. It's not right that we have to be murdered the way that we're being murdered. They're scared of us. Our image is more than we want to admit that it is. I have this platform to share my interest in fashion because before we open our mouth to say who we are, our appearance speaks for us. The way we look speaks for us. If I walk around with my pants down to my knees, looking and acting like I don't care about anything or anyone in the world, unfortunately, that's exactly what someone else would think. That doesn't mean that it's exactly how I feel or exactly how I am, but that's what people are going to think. I'm told all the time by people that I have this thing about myself where, sometimes people think that I'm better than people. And the reality is I'm just very quiet. I'm very laid back. I like to see and observe more than I actually speak. I am an introvert. I like to be by myself. And it's really just who I am and that's how I am. In some ways, I feel like that's kind of hurt me in this platform because I'm not always looking to seek attention from someone for something. This brings me back to a different point. And I know this video is very long. I'm trying to wrap it up as soon as I can. But it brings me back to a different point. Not too long ago, it's just maybe sometime towards the end of last year, I received a comment on a video. And if I can find a comment, I'll put it here on the screen. I don't remember exactly what the comment said, but I will paraphrase. The person said something about my personality being boring. And I questioned what he meant by it. I didn't even bother responding because I had a lot of things going on, and at the end of the day, it wasn't really that important. But I questioned what he meant, and I did formulate my own interpretation of what that meant. I watch YouTube. I watch a lot of YouTube videos. I watch YouTube more than I watch regular TV. A lot of black content creators, when you go onto their video, what you see, hey, what's good? Gang, gang, back with an... A lot of it is juvenile. A lot of it is a character that really isn't who they are. And this culture has a way of condoning being lit and being turned instead of being real. So when I see the comment that I'm boring, honestly, I am. I don't think my personality is boring. It's just that I don't put out a facade for attention. I don't put out a facade for views. What you see is really what you get. This is who I am. And I'm not going to pretend to be something or someone else for someone else's entertainment. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong to do that. It's just not for me. At the end of the day, we are feared. We are feared because we are inherently violent towards each other. It's been this way for years due to oppression and poverty. And when people fear something, they take desperate measures to protect themselves. Survival. Survival is an innate instinct. We all feel the need to survive every single day. Some people do things that are criminal to survive. For some people, survival is to harm so that they can eat, so they can live. It's almost like an animal instinct. Survival at all costs. Kill or be killed. So when we do these kind of things to each other, that's exactly what we're seen as. Animals. And that's what we're up against. It's not just the system. We're at war with the system and our own race, our own species. We are fighting against a racially driven system. We can't fight each other as well. We can't kill each other. If we see each other as the enemy, I'm talking to my people, black people. If we see each other as the enemy, what do you think the rest of the world is going to see us as? If we see each other as a threat, what do you think the rest of the world is going to see us as? I really hope things can change. Catch you guys in the next one.